Upload. Uploading. Uploaded.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Show. You can find all of our episodes at pharmacypodcast.com.
What's happening?
This is the Pharmacy Podcast Network's coverage of HIMSS 2018 in Las Vegas. March 6th, March 7th, March 8th, March 9th, I believe. A little early from the show to get to Mississippi. Pre-planned meetings. What an amazing show. The ambition of so many coming together, sharing ideas, talking about healthcare information technology and its impact on patient care, on working together in collaboration, advancing medicine, themes about artificial intelligence were abound, and very interesting machine learning and how artificial intelligence will help predict and diagnose faster if a patient has a DNA test, for example, and how they're going to advance pharmacogenomics. Everybody knows that listens to the show how exciting that is for me to hear more about. Maybe we'll get Ken Sternfeld to cover a little bit more about PGX for pharmacists and that topic. I want to give a shout out to Jimmy Ung. Jimmy is a Pharmacy Podcast listener. He is here at the HIMSS show. He's with Chinatown Pharmacy, and proud to have you as a listener, Jimmy. Let's be sure to get together. Sorry we missed each other at HIMSS, but it's just been a non-stop 48 hours for me, and meeting up with Jon Nasta from Nasta Lab, who's been on the show several times, listening to several presenters. Especially the most interesting to me was the HX360 Executive Engagement, who Jon Nasta actually was the moderator. Bruce Greenstein with Health and Human Services was there. Mitch Morris, the Executive Vice President of Optum. Emma Caramel. She's a venture capitalist. Extremely interesting woman. I'm going to look her up, see if we can't get her on the Pharmacy Podcast. If you haven't been to the HIMSS conference, I highly suggest it. It's invigorating. It's a tremendous amount of information, so check it out. So we have several interviews coming up. One with Medisafe. I interviewed Jon Michaeli, who is the Executive Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. I went down and saw IQVIA, Jim Fox, Director of Information Partner Services, and we're doing some follow-up with him. Fascinating organization who bought up IMS. Matt McGrath, shout out to Experian Health and all you're doing to advance healthcare with data analytics and the information that you provide to healthcare providers. Okay, let's get on with this show.
This is Jon Michaeli. I'm Executive Vice President for Medisafe, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Hey, Jon, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. How are you?
Great, Todd. How are you?
Good. Hey, we're here at the HIMSS 2018. It's just every time I come here, I'm overwhelmed. This is actually the largest conference I attend. Most of my conferences are 2,000, 3,000 people, but 45,000 people, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something you have to prepare yourself for mentally and physically before you come to the show each year. So,
Medisafe, I entered pharmacy in 2004. The number one thing that I was taught based on the technology that we represented was safety and adherence. Medisafe is all about the adherence. I want you to give the listeners just an overview of Medisafe, and then I have some questions for you.
Absolutely. So Medisafe is a medication management platform for patients. It's an app you download to your mobile device. We support Android and iOS. It helps you manage your medications and take them as prescribed. And what we do is, in addition to helping patients, we share information, data, aggregated, de-identified data with the care continuum, with providers, payers, pharma, et cetera, to help them help patients take their medications as prescribed.
So, Jon, are you doing this by disease state specifically? Are you guys concentrating on a specific territory? How do you guys manage and help a healthcare system, a payer, even a hospital system? How are you guys leveraging the technology and plugging it into what is helping patients today?
Great. So Medisafe was the vision of Medisafe, and the way it was designed was to allow patients to add any medication for any condition. And because patients are not just diabetics or hypertensive, they oftentimes suffer from comorbidities, and so we wanted to give them that opportunity to treat every condition that they want to manage. Medisafe's goal from the very beginning was not just to be a consumer app. What Medisafe was designed to do, first of all, the platform, the infrastructure sits in the cloud, which is where the whole data repository is gathered. And then we have helped patients to date, 4.3 million patients, manage over 1 billion doses of their medication. And essentially, we use that information. We have machine learning algorithms in the back end and predictive analytics that help us personalize the experience uniquely for each patient so that they can address their specific barriers or challenges with taking the medication as prescribed. And then we inform pharma and payers on what is preventing patients from taking their medications, the trends, the patterns, actionable information that they can use to help those patients and interact and intervene in real time to help those patients stay on course, stay on therapy.
So the data that can be collected based on the providers intersect with the application, with the data that Medisafe has, that's important. But what's really interesting is you guys released a short article that got me excited this morning, which was patients giving information and important patient-specific information through the app, and then how that's going to augment and enhance everything else that's going on through the ongoing therapy. So just touch on that, because I think that's really interesting for pharmacists that are listening to the show.
Right. So first of all, second part of my answer to your previous question, then I'll get to this specifically. So the way we integrate with hospital systems directly is we allow patients to bring in their medications, import them essentially from their patient portal through middleware software. So you don't have to enter all of your medications manually. You can actually import them from major pharmacy chains and also from your hospital system using that are using various EMRs. In terms of the news that we announced this morning, so there's some skepticism about self-reported data, and by that, let me just explain. So on Medisafe, patients, when they receive notifications or alerts, they tell Medisafe that they've either taken the medication or they're skipping it or they're rescheduling it, etc. And we often get challenged about the accuracy or the reliability of that data. Are patients really recording it correctly? Are they just responding to the notification even though they're not really taking the medication? And so what the results that we released this morning show is that Medisafe's data is reliable, it's accurate, it's also predictive of claims. So the standard, the de facto standard of how pharma and others in the industry measure adherence is through prescription claims when they refill the medication, right?
Yep.
And what we saw through a study is that the self-reported data is highly consistent and, as I said, predictive of what will bear out in those prescription claims. In other words, you can trust the data that Medisafe is sharing.
That's terrific. You get patients involved in their own care and they understand the importance of that. I think pharmacists communicating with their patients saying, if you get involved with this application that Medisafe has provided, it's going to provide us with better information to help with better outcomes, and really encouraging a patient to get involved in their own being, in their own health. So that's excellent news, Jon. So what's next? Well, how do we educate providers in understanding the importance of this education? How does Medisafe make it simple for a patient and a physician or a caregiver or even a pharmacist to work together with this application?
So great question. Well, first of all, let me say this is the beginning, right? We know that the industry is moving towards outcomes-based care, and so by seeing that patients are actually refilling their medications, you're on your way. For pharma specifically, that's a very important metric. Do patients fill the prescription? It's also correlated for many therapeutic areas, essentially a surrogate of if patients are filling the medication, then they're likely to incur lower costs, reduce the risk of hospitalization, and so forth. So that's the relevance to payers and risk-sharing risk-bearing providers, right? Downstream from here, Medisafe will seek to also show that those other outcomes, like hospitalizations and procedures and other things, actually decline when patients are taking their medication. But there have been observational studies in the past that have shown that. So ultimately, we know that fragmentation or interoperability is a challenge for this industry. And so certainly, in addition to just sharing data, we're going to be doing some integrations that will enable the systems to talk to each other so that when patients aren't taking their medication as prescribed, for example, if they miss a certain number of doses in a row or their adherence falls below a certain key threshold, Medisafe will be able to ping or notify a provider that a patient is at risk so that they can follow up. So it's a combination of merging the technology with human care, human touch points to be able to help patients stay on course.
Jon, thank you so much for participating in HIMSS 2018 Pharmacy Podcast Network coverage, and we look forward to talking with Medisafe again. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Data, I cannot make bricks without clay.
Hello, this is Dennis Wright, Director of Marketing with IV Solutions, Business within Omnicell. You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. I'm sitting here with Dennis Wright. He's Director of Marketing of IV Solutions with Omnicell. Welcome back, Omnicell, to the Pharmacy Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well.
2017, we interviewed Ken Perez, and it's pretty cool that you guys are returning to the show with HIMSS 2018. So, just to set the stage, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your division within Omnicell.
Wonderful, I'd be happy to. So, I'm responsible for the IV Solutions business at Omnicell, and really what that is a full line of IV automation equipment, from fully automated IV robotics to semi-automated IV workflow solutions that are really designed to help improve and enhance patient safety when it comes to IV compounding. So we're really excited to be here and participating at HIMSS this year.
One of our podcasts is the non-traditional pharmacist, and this is a shout out to you guys. This might be a great interview for you guys to talk with someone that is in the field of a part of pharmacy that might not get that much attention but is vitally important, especially in that hospital setting. Tell our listeners just a little bit about the uniqueness of an IV pharmacy environment, what that means to the overall organization, and then just Omnicell's vision and your mission, and specifically within IV pharmacy.
Yeah, so as far as IV pharmacy is concerned, a lot of the processes are still very manual, which brings a lot of challenges to many of our customers. So really we're looking at ways to, there's kind of four cornerstones that we have with our IV Solutions business, and it's about enhancing patient safety, improving accuracy, while reducing cost and helping our customers enable compliance. And really, our solutions and our mission is really based around those four cornerstones. That's what we've heard from many of our customers that they're struggling with. So we're always finding new and unique ways to help solve those problems. So a really good specific example that we announced prior to ASHP was our partnership with Wolters Kluwer around Simplify 797. So market-leading quality management and compliance software they have. Our new product that we introduced at ASHP, IVX Workflow and IVX Cloud, is actually integrated with Simplify 797. So it's really a specific example of how we're reaching out to the market, and specifically on that idea of enabling compliance, leveraging partnerships with folks like Wolters Kluwer to help really drive that and solve that problem for our customers.
So I can't help but to think of data, and this is a big topic, but in 2018 here at HIMSS, it's become a little bit more real. It's no longer this buzzword, because there's organizations here actually having reporting now that we can actually read into and understand what that really means when we say those buzzwords. So from a data perspective, I think of disease states, and I'm wondering what disease states does the IV technology that Omnicell provide healthcare organizations that you guys gravitate towards? Is there anything that you guys have done by passing data back to Wolters Kluwer or another research organization? Tell us a little bit about what data is coming back to Omnicell and what you guys are doing with that.
That's such a great question. This is an area where we've invested a tremendous amount of time and resources, is really in the data side. So we launched a program a couple years ago called Reinvent, and really what that is our partnership in reaching out to our customers in the interest of sharing data. So we're actually pulling data back from each of the robots that our customers have installed, and we are in an anonymous way, so there's no site-specific or patient-specific information in there, but we're aggregating it and making it available to our broader customer base. So they're able to use data to drive decisions on how best to leverage IV robotics. So it's really been a very successful program. There's over 2.6 million preparations in the database right now. And what it really does is it's transformed the discussion from making our customers guess on how best to leverage technology to using data to drive those decisions. So when you have a question on throughput of the device or accuracy or best protocols to run, it's not marketing or one of our clinical educators telling you. It's you can go in and check the database yourself. And it's updated on a daily basis. So we're pulling that data back from all of the installed robots, all the live robots on a daily basis, and refreshing it and making it available for our customers. So really been a fantastic program and very well received.
So where else is the IV technology being utilized other than a healthcare system or a hospital system?
So the healthcare hospital system is kind of the primary location, but we do have some installations at larger scale compounding facilities that would supply hospitals and health systems. So we have a number of those that we're working with. Really, they see a lot of benefit from the IV automation technology as well, especially the robotics, just from the standpoint of consistency, where they're creating they're doing a lot of batch work, so it's standard doses, and the robots can perform very well in that environment.
What about specialty pharmacy? What are you guys doing in that space within pharmacy overall and IV? And is there specialty disease states that are more prone to needing IV technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So ISMP came out in late 2016 and really had a very forward-leaning stance on the use of technology and specifically gravimetric verification for oncology and pediatrics. So really, which makes a lot of sense, right? You have the ability to deploy extra checks and extra care in the compounding process for those higher risk populations. So we've definitely seen an uptake in the utilization of the technology in both of those areas. One of the things that's really nice about our semi-automated workflow solution that we call IVX workflow is it really puts the control in the end user's hands to determine where they want to deploy the various checks as part of the process. So you can set up the system so as orders come across, and if they fall into a pediatric category or if they fall into an oncology category, then they will route through a more robust workflow. Versus if you're doing something that may traditionally be considered lower risk, like batch compounding antibiotics, for instance, where you can just do barcode scanning pictures, kind of really streamline the process. So our solution really puts that control in our customers' hands, allowing them to customize and design what we call risk-based workflows.
Something else I'm thinking of, Dennis, is big organizations that are not the typical independently owned pharmacy nor the typical specialty pharmacy, but we're seeing hybrids. For example, Fred's Pharmacy, which is a big grocery store chain, I've heard that they have a centralized servicing division that will include in the future IV and compounding. And what's really interesting is I think of Omnicell that you guys could really be that source of IV compounding central fill, especially when you're dealing with multiple locations.
Yes, absolutely. And I think having the ability to provide the full portfolio, the full suite of solutions from fully automated robotics to the semi-automated to really robustly meet those needs adds a tremendous amount of value. So I completely agree with you that that could be a way for us to partner with those types of specialty pharmacies.
Well, it's been an exciting HIMSS 2018. I'm so glad that, Dennis, that you got to come on and participate in the overview summary show. And we got to have Omnicell back for a third time in a row.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was Dennis Wright with Omnicell IV Solutions. If you want to learn more, go to Google, put in Omnicell IV Solutions, and thank you so much for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
HIMSS 2018 was a bit overwhelming, but incredibly valuable. So many different topics were covered. Products and services from 1,300 plus different companies coming at you from every angle. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, seamless integration, interoperability, mind-blowing technologies. But as I stated before in a review that Dr. Aaron Albert and I did together, it's actually happening. We're not just talking about it. The cloud is now the destination for seemingly every provider for everything. Telehealth is mainstream with every health system at various stages of development. Cybersecurity is more important than ever before. Predictive analytics is now driving both operational improvements and clinical decisions. Artificial intelligence is not Buck Rogers or future talking as it's happening now. How to integrate Alexa into your health planning and interaction with your patients is up for grabs. That voice-driven hospital room actively being tested, and virtual reality is finding practical use cases for everything from improving clinical training to patient rehabilitation. Pretty excited about the future. If you're a forward-thinking pharmacist, you've got to be on top of it. Consider going to HIMSS 2019. Be sure to subscribe to all of the Pharmacy Podcast Network's programs. Easiest place to find them: Google, SoundCloud, Pharmacy Podcast. Look at the list section. You'll find all of the shows there. We're also still looking for our PolitiTalk RX host. Do you know any pharmacists out there who are politically savvy? Let us know. Publisher at pharmacypodcast.com. We thank you so much for listening to today's show. Give us a shout out on Twitter at Pharmacy Podcast or Instagram at Pharmacy Podcast. And as always, we're so thankful that you're listening. Be sure to subscribe in iTunes or iHeartRadio, which we're now broadcasting on iHeartRadio. And we thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Do you know what today is?
No, what?
Today is tomorrow.